Hello to everyone and welcome to what I'm calling Seder 101. The background to this is that a number of people from the community have asked me to put together a short, and I say short, rather shortish video with regard to how to run a Seder, for the simple reason that for many people, they attend Sedorim every year at various friends and family. They've become reliant on the host running the Seder, and as a result thereof have never really run their own Seder. This year, with the lockdown and people having to run their own Seder, a lot of people have been thrown into the situation of having to run their own Seder and really are not too familiar with everything that needs to happen. So I'm calling this Seder 101. I'm not going to go through everything in detail, just to give a few tips here and there how to run a Seder. But I do want it to be informative, so that's why I mentioned at the beginning, short-ish, in as far as I want it to be meaningful, but at the same time, I don't want to overburden with customs and different traditions during the course of the Seder. Obviously, this is to be listened to before the Yontif. One is not allowed to listen to this video on Shabbos or Yontif, so I ask people to please adhere to listening to this before Yontif. Take down a few notes, and hopefully you will be able to run your own Seder. It really isn't all that difficult. What I am going to be doing is I'm going to be using this Haggadah. It's the Art Scroll edition called the Family Haggadah. I really recommend that people obtain this Haggadah. It's a Haggadah that has all the steps to follow for the Seder. It's really clear and made simple. And also, as I've mentioned many times, one of the really important aspects of making a Seder, a meaningful Seder, is having everybody use the same Haggadah, literally so that everybody can be on the same page. It's important when running a Seder that you don't have a whole lot of people sitting with different Haggadot. It's really difficult then for the person who's running the Seder to allow everybody to follow. Also, when reading the Haggadah, for those people that are not familiar with the Hebrew and can't read all the Hebrew, then at certain places during the Seder, during the Magid, the reciting of the story of the Exodus, for example, it would be perfectly acceptable for people to read parts of the Haggadah in English. Obviously, certain parts of the Haggadah, like the Kiddush, for example, those should be recited in Hebrew. To start off with, the Seder plate. Now here again, there are lots of different traditions with regard to what we put on the Seder plate, and also what is in the top left, what is in the top right, the bottom left, and so on. So I'm going to give you the general understanding of what we put on the Seder plate. There are 6 items that are placed on the Seder plate, and I'm referring to them as they are in the Haggadah on page 18. Also a reminder that in addition to the 6 items that we have on the Seder plate, we also should have salt water, which we use during the Seder, that is not on the Seder plate. And of course, we have 3 matzot, unlike Friday night and Yontif, where we have 2 challahs. On the night of the Seder, we have 3 matzot, and that's for the simple reason that matzah is going to be eaten 3 times during the Seder, as we'll see. Matzah is eaten by itself. Later on, it's going to be eaten with the maror, with the bitter herbs. And then we also have matzah at the very end of the meal, and that is for the afikoman. And we'll get to those things shortly. So just a brief description of the 6 items that we're going to have on the Seder plate. We have maror and chazeret. Bitter herbs are eaten twice during the Seder, and this is how it would work. The first time we're going to eat the bitter herbs by themselves, and the second time we're going to have the bitter herbs with matzah. Okay, so the 2 items that we use, maror and chazeret. So the maror is horseradish, and for chazeret, many people have the custom of using romaine lettuce. So those are 2 of the things for the Seder plate. Then we have the charoset. The charoset is a mixture of apples, nuts, and wine. And the charoset is a reminder of the cement that was used by the Israelites during their enslavement. The bitter herbs, obviously, is a reminder of the bitter times. And then we have also the zroa and the beitza. The zroa is a roasted bone, and the zroa reminds us of the korban Pesach, which was a special sacrifice that took place on the yontif of Pesach. And then also we have the beitza, which is the roasted egg, and the roasted egg reminds us of another korban, of another sacrifice that used to take place on all festivals, known as the korban chagiga. The reason that we use an egg to symbolize this is because an egg is a symbol of mourning. People are familiar with the custom when one returns home from the cemetery. People sitting shiva would eat a hard-boiled egg, and the hard-boiled egg is a symbol of mourning, and that is used as a reminder of the destruction of the temple. Then we have the karpas, which is a vegetable. Many people have the custom of having a boiled potato on the Seder plate, and that makes up the 6 different things that we have on the Seder plate. As I've mentioned, there are different customs as to where to place them, but if one follows the instructions in this particular Haggadah, the art scroll on page 18, it gives you visual guidance as to where to place the different things on the Seder plate. If a person has not had the opportunity of actually purchasing a Seder plate normally has the names of the different items in particular positions, then one can use an ordinary plate and just put these items in the particular order. We then start with the reciting of the order of the Seder. Now, the word Seder means order, and we have a very specific order that we do things on the night of the Seder. It's important even with regard to the 4 glasses of wine. One can't make kiddush, for example, and drink 4 cups of wine. That wouldn't observe the mitzvah of the arba kosot, of the 4 glasses. The glasses of wine have to be drunk at their particular time, as we'll see as we go along. And the Haggadah is divided up into sections. Now, there are actually 15 different sections in the Haggadah. Those are the smaller sections. We have 4 glasses of wine during the Seder night for a number of reasons. One of the reasons is that in the book of Shmot, in the second book of the Torah, the book of Exodus, we read of Hashem promising the Jewish people at the time 4 times. There are 4 promises that the Israelites would be redeemed from Egypt. And in addition to that, the actual Seder, although there are 15 smaller sections in the Seder, they're really divided up into 4 larger sections, and it's at the end of each of one of these sections that we recite the brocha for a glass of wine. So we have the order of the Seder, and that's on page 19. And in addition, what I've been asked to do, in addition to explaining how to run a Seder, is just on the odd occasion here and there to sing different songs to allow people to learn the tunes of some of the songs that we sing during the Seder. And as we go through the Seder, I will sing some of the more well-known songs to their traditional tunes to help people with regard to running their own Seder. So before we recite the Kiddush, we stand up for this part of the Seder. I'm going to be sitting for the duration of this video, but during the actual Seder, one would stand up and one would recite the order of the Seder. And there is quite a well-known tune. The children learn it at school. There is quite a well-known tune as to the order of the Seder, which I'll sing for you now, and then we'll continue with the Kiddush. The Seder starts as follows, and I'm on page 19 of the Haggadah. The tune for the order goes as follows: Kadesh urchatz karpas yachatz magir rachatza motzi matzah maror korech shulchan orech tzafun barech halel nirtzah. Then we continue with the actual Kiddush. The Kiddush is on page 20 in the Haggadah. And again, a reminder that the Kiddush is not a special prayer that we recite for wine. The bracha for wine is Borei Pri Hagafen, and that would be regardless if a person is drinking wine on the night of the Seder, or if a person was having wine with a meal during the week. The Kiddush is really known as Kiddushat Hayom. It's a special prayer to give sanctity, to give honor to the day. And we say this holding a glass of wine. Same as on Friday night when we recite Kiddush, we recite it holding a cup of wine. If a person, for example, on a regular Friday night did not have wine, you would still have to recite Kiddush, and you would replace the bracha of Borei Pri Hagafen with the Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz, because you would be reciting the Kiddush, the sanctification of the day, over bread and not over wine. So this year we continue with Kiddush from Borei Pri Hagafen, and as far as the first night, Pesach is not on a Friday night. Had it been on a Friday night, there's an extra paragraph that would be recited, but this year, since Pesach first night is on a Wednesday night, we stand up and we recite Kiddush. It's also important that during the Seder, in addition to the 3 matzot that we have on the table with close to the Seder plate, there should be matzah all around the table, because when certain blessings are said, and this goes for the wine as well, there's not going to be enough matzah from the 3 matzot that are by the person who's leading the Seder to provide everybody with sufficient matzah to eat. So too with the Borei Pri Hagafen, there should be wine on the table for people to use their own wine at the times that we need to say the specific brachot for the arba kosot, for the 4 glasses. So we continue now with the Kiddush for Wednesday night, which is the first night of the Seder. And since this is a video being done before Yom Tov, obviously, so I'm not going to be using Hashem's name throughout the video, but I'm going to use the term Hashem. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher bachabanu mikol ha'am v'romamanu mikol hashon v'kiddashanu b'mitzvotav v'titen lanu Hashem Elokeinu b'yahava moadim l'simcha Chagim uzmanim l'sason et yom chag hamatzot hazeh zaman cherutenu mikra kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim kivanu v'hata v'yotan hidashta mikol ha'amim umadei kodshecha b'simcha v'sason hinchartanu baruch atah Hashem mekadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kiyemanu v'higiyanu lazman hazeh. At this point, people would drink from the wine, and this fulfills the obligation of drinking the first cup of wine. As I mentioned earlier, regardless of how much wine a person drinks at this point, it still falls under the category of the first glass. We then continue with the next part of the Haggadah, and that's known as the part of Rachatz. And here again, there are different traditions with regard to who washes their hands. In many families, it's the person who's leading the Seder who would wash their hands. In other communities, sometimes all the participants of the Seder wash their hands at this point. What is important at this point is that you thus, with the regular way of washing your hands, twice on the right and twice on the left, but no bracha is said. So unlike a regular Friday night where you're making hamotzi, or any other time that you're making hamotzi, at this time of the Seder, the hands are washed, but there is no blessing that is recited. So that's the second part of the Seder. And then we get to the next part, which is the karpas, and one would recite the blessing for the karpas and then eat the karpas, which, as I mentioned earlier on, in many traditions, we have the custom of using a boiled potato, which is important at this point in time to remember, is that it shouldn't be a large amount that one is eating, just a small amount of karpas. And the bracha, bottom of page 22 in this Haggadah, is the bracha Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech HaOlam Borei Pri HaAdamah. We then continue with the yachatz. The yachatz is the breaking of the matzot. And here again, one can't just simply break any one of the matzot, but as I mentioned earlier on, you have 3 matzot. At this point, the person leading the Seder is going to break the middle matzah. Be careful not to break it exactly in half. It's important that we have a larger piece and a smaller piece. So the person now leading the Seder is going to break the 2 matzot. The smaller piece is going to be put back with the 3 matzot, and the larger piece is set aside, and that's going to be for the afikoman. There's no bracha that is said at this time. It is just the breaking of the matzah, and as I said, the one piece, the smaller piece, is put back. The larger piece is used for the afikoman. We now continue with the larger section of the Seder from a length point of view, and that is the magid. That comes from the Hebrew word lahagid, which means to tell, and this is the reading of the Haggadah basically until the meal, where we go through the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, and by reciting the magid we fulfill one of the positive mitzvot with regard to Pesach. We have a number of positive mitzvot and negative mitzvot that have to be observed on Pesach, and by reciting the magid we fulfill the positive mitzvah of retelling the story from Egypt, and it starts off with an Aramaic phrase of halachma anya. Again, the person who's leading the Seder is going to hold up the broken matzah, and this talks of the bread of our affliction, and this is the beginning of the magid. After the halachma anya is read, we continue with a well-known part of the Seder, and that is the manishtana, the questions, the 4 questions. And in many families, there is the tradition for the younger participants of the Seder to sing the manishtana. However, it's important to note, it's actually brought down in the Gemara, even if a person is doing the Seder by themselves, the manishtana is always read regardless if there is a young person at the Seder or not. The person doing the Seder by themselves would read the manishtana. And the truth is that even if one is doing a large Seder with lots of children, there is no halacha which states that it's only the children that can sing the manishtana, but indeed everybody can. There are a number of tunes for manishtana. I've been asked to keep these 2 traditional tunes, so I'm going to sing the traditional tune for manishtana. And there are 4 questions, and I'm going to go through them, and they're on page 24 in the Haggadah. Ma nishtana halayla hazeh mikol haleilot, mikol haleilot shebechol haleilot anu ochlin chametz umatzah halayla hazeh kulo mahatzah shebechol haleilot anu ochlin she'ar yerakot halayla hazeh kulo maharor shebechol halelot ein anu matbilin afilu pa'am echat halayla hazeh shetehei amim shebechol halelot anu ochlin bein yoshvinu vein musubin halayla hazeh kulanu mesubin. At this time we continue with the reading of the Haggadah. As I mentioned, at this point in time, the Haggadah can be read in English. The questions actually can also be read in English. Many have the custom of reading that in Hebrew, making a particular effort to read the questions in Hebrew. But if people do not understand the Hebrew, it's really important to read the English as well. We then continue with Avadim Hayinu Lefaro B'Mitzrayim, and we read through the different parts of the Haggadah. We read through the 4 sons, the different questions that they ask. That's on page 28. And then we continue right through to page 30. And here again we have one of the traditional songs, and that's at the bottom of page 30, Vehi She'amda. At this point of the Seder, and at various points, you'll see the Haggadah actually tells you at this point the cup of wine is lifted. Sometimes we remove the Seder plate from the table, then put it back on the table. All of those instructions are written in the Haggadah. When it comes to the Vehi She'amda, it's one of the parts of the Seder where we make sure that the matzot are all covered. And at this point, we actually all have the custom of lifting up the glass of wine. And again, there are a variety of tunes to Vehi She'amda. One of the traditional tunes goes as follows: Vehi She'amda, Vehi She'amda, Lavoteinu Velanu. Vehi She'amda, Vehi She'amda, Lavoteinu Velanu. Shelo echad bilevad amad aleinu lechalotenu. Ela shebechol dovador omdim aleinu lechalotenu. V'hakadosh baruch hu matzileinu miyadam. We continue now with the Magid. The Magid, as I mentioned earlier on, is the part of the Seder which really takes the longest time. And it's important not only to read through the Haggadah, but it's really nice is to discuss various parts of the Seder, and during the reading of the Magid, also an opportunity to discuss some of the laws of Pesach. The Magid also contains the 10 plagues. It's on page 38 of the Haggadah. And at this point in time, it's the custom to dip our fingers into the full glass of wine. By this time, the glass has been refilled for the second glass, and we remove a drop of wine from the glass for each one of the 10 plagues. The reason for this is quite important, and that is we understand that the process of leaving Egypt needed the plagues. Unfortunately, the process could have gone ahead without the plagues, but Pharaoh was stubborn, and as a result of his stubbornness, the plagues took place. But we do know that the Egyptians suffered, and in order to associate ourselves with their suffering, we remove a drop of wine from the glass when we recite each plague, because a full cup of wine is a symbol of joy, it's a symbol of royalty. And when we recite the plagues, there is a sensitivity to the hardships that the Egyptians suffered. So when we recite each one of these plagues, we remove a drop of wine, and then obviously afterwards we fill the glass again, so that it will be a full cup of wine when we get to the second glass, which is going to be a little bit later on in the evening. We now continue with one of the well-known songs in the Haggadah on page 40, Dayenu. I think that there are a number of reasons why people enjoy the song. Firstly, it's a tune that everybody's familiar with. Also, people are now familiar with the fact that when we get to the song of Dayenu, after reading quite a lot of the Haggadah, Dayenu is bringing us a little bit closer to the meal, which by now everybody's a little bit hungry. So there's an anticipation for Dayenu for a number of reasons. Again, there are some different tunes for Dayenu, and I'll continue with the traditional one. I'm not going to sing every verse, but just to give you an idea of the tune, and you can follow this tune for all the different verses of the Dayenu. The Dayenu is a part of the Seder where we give thanks to Hashem for everything that He did for us in regard to the Exodus from Egypt. Ilu hotziyanu mimitzrayim v'lo asavahem shefatihim dayenu 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 ilu asavahem shefatim v'lo asavelo lehem dayenu dayenu dayenu. What is also an idea during the Dayenu, if you do have people at the Seder who are able to read the Hebrew with ease. One can ask different people to sing the Dayenu, and it's really important to involve people with the reading of the Haggadah. And just to mention that even though the head of the household or whoever's running the Seder will do certain things during the Seder, during the Magid, I think it's really important to share that with all the participants so that everybody can have a stake, so to speak, with regard to reciting the different parts of the Haggadah. On page 42 in this Haggadah, we mention three things that Rabban Gamliel told us, and when we recite these three things, we actually lift these items off the Pesach plate, because they are three items of particular significance. As it says in the Haggadah, Rabban Gamliel haya omer, Rabban Gamliel used to teach us, Kol shelo amar shlosha dvarim elu b'Pesach, a person who did not make mention in particular of these three things during the Pesach Seder, lo yatsa yadei chavato, a person has not fulfilled his complete duty on the night of Pesach. And what are the three things? Pesach, matzah, umaror. And when we recite the word Pesach, we lift up the shank bone. Matzah, we lift up a piece of matzah. Umaror, we lift up the horseradish. Then we continue reading the Haggadah, and we eventually get towards the end of the Magid, and what we have towards the end of the Magid is parts of Hallel. Now, Hallel is recited on Rosh Chodesh, for example. It's recited on all three pilgrim festivals, and Hallel is a collection of psalms giving thanks to Hashem, and the Hallel falls into the Haggadah as well. Part of the Hallel is recited before we have the main meal, and part of the Hallel is recited after the Birkat HaMazon, after the benching. So here we have on page 46 part of the Hallel, which is very familiar to many people. And this is, I'll sing the song, and after this we continue now with the second glass. But before that we sing B'tzeit Israel, which is towards the beginning of the Hallel, and the tune, as is familiar to most people, B'tzeit Yisrael mi Mitzrayim, Beit Yaakov me'am lo eiz, Hayata Yehuda lekodsho, Yisrael mam shelotav, Hayam ra'av vayanos, Hayarden yisov le'achor, Heharim rakdu chelim, Gevaot kivnei tzon, Malecha hayam, Kitanus, Hayarden tisov le'achor, Heharim tirkedu chelim, Gevaot kivnei tzon, Milifnei Adon chuli aretz, milifnei Elocha Yaakov, hahofchi atzur, agam mayim, chalamish, lemaino mahayim. We now continue with what's going to be the blessing for the second glass of wine. Make sure at this point that the matzot are all covered, and we lift up the glass of wine and continue with the blessing of Borei Pri Hagafen, and that would fulfill the second course, the second of the 4 glasses of wine. After the second glass of wine has been drunk, we now continue with the regular vasing, known in the Haggadah as Rachatzah, where we wash our hands as we normally do before we have bread, or matzah in this case, and we recite the regular bracha of Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. Now, at this part of the Seder, one has to be a little bit careful with regard to the brachot and the pieces of matzah that are going to be eaten. So I'll just go through it very clearly. After everybody is vast, we then return to the table and we're going to recite 2 blessings for the matzah. The reason that we're reciting 2 blessings is that one blessing is for the eating of matzah, which we're going to do. And in addition to that, there is a second blessing. And this blessing is only recited twice during the entire Pesach. And that is on the first and the second night of Pesach, where there is a special mitzvah, a special requirement to eat matzah. What that means is that during the week of Pesach, if a person really doesn't like matzah, or matzah doesn't agree with a person physically, there is no obligation to eat matzah every single day of Pesach. However, there is an obligation to eat matzah on the first 2 nights of Pesach. And that's why there's going to be an additional blessing of Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu ala hilat matzah, a special blessing relating to the specific mitzvah of eating matzah on the 2 nights of Pesach. So how do we go about this? So we're now going to recite the first bracha, and that's the bracha of Hamotzi Lechem min haaretz. So what matzot are we going to use for this? So at this point in time, we're going to take the matzah and we're going to lift all 3 of the matzot. Okay, all the matzot that are on the Seder plate, we recite the bracha, holding up all 3 matzot. And then after we have recited the bracha of Hamotzi Lechem min haaretz, we don't eat, but then we take the bottom matzah, and remember at this point in time, the bottom matzah has not been broken. So we put the bottom matzah aside, and then we hold up the top matzah with the middle matzah, which has been broken, and then we're going to recite the bracha of Asher Kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu ala chilat matzah. And after that bracha, each person is going to eat matzah. As I mentioned earlier on, there needs to be matzah around the table because the matzah in front of the person leading the Seder is obviously not going to be sufficient for everybody to eat. So people can use matzah that has been put around the table for this purpose. Also to mention at this point that many people have the custom of eating shmura matzah on the nights of Pesach and not regular matzah. We don't have time now to go into the difference between the two, but it's not an obligation. But if a person does have shmura matzah at home, then it would be preferable to use shmura matzah on the nights of the Sedarim, in particular the first night. After this, we continue now with the maror,